Joining me now is the 70th Secretary of State and Fox News contributor, Mike Pompeo. Secretary, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Great to be with you this morning, Maria.
And I'll start off with that letter from Blinken to Israeli officials. Is that a threat? If you don't change things and allow humanitarian aid to increase into Gaza within 30 days, we will hold back weapons to Israel.
It's absolutely a threat. It's a threat not only to the Israelis, it's a threat to American security. It fundamentally misunderstands the problem set here. The Israelis have been the ones providing assistance into Gaza for years. Along with the UN and the United States, they're the ones that have tried to make the lives better for the people in Gaza. It is Hamas who put civilians next to military targets and then killed 1,200 people and frankly, still holding Americans hostage. And the administration doesn't even talk about that in their letter. They refuse to accept the proposition that Tehran is the problem here, the Ayatollah and the IRGC, and they continue to restrain our ally from doing the necessary to protect itself and to protect us here in the United States, and to threaten them, to say, if you don't provide more trucks of food, you'll remember the famous pier they built to try and deliver food that was just an epic failure at a couple $100 million of U.S. taxpayer expense. If you don't provide more food, we're going to demand that your nation be put at risk. That fundamentally mistakes good for evil and gets moral equivalence dangerously close to be something this administration is just too prepared to accept.
Well, we also have all these threats on U.S. officials from Iran, and Biden has done nothing about it up until recently. I know that they want to take you out. You've had a fatwa on your back since you were in office. The Iranians have said they want you assassinated. Biden reportedly instructed his National Security Council now to make clear to Iran that any attempt on Donald Trump's life would be viewed as an act of war. Maybe he watched my interview with former President on Sunday, because former President Trump told me all about this on Sunday. Watch this.
Biden should do something else. He should tell Iran, where I do have an open death threat, if you touch this guy, who's a former president, and now he's the leading candidate to be president, we're going to blow your whole damn country up. And then it would stop immediately. They cannot threaten an ex-president who is a very strong, you saw the betting odds, they're through the roof, right? Is a strong possibility to become the president again.
So, Secretary, I mean, they're threatening a former Secretary of State, yourself. They're threatening a former president, Donald Trump. Do you believe that Joe Biden got tough on Iran? Or you've said in the past there's been no deterrence whatsoever?
Well, the facts would suggest there hasn't been any deterrence. You can still see the Iranians at it, the Hezbollah still firing missiles, the Shia militias in Iraq. Sounds like we took a strike into Yemen. I'll bet the Houthis fire more missiles yet this week at commercial shipping. And you're right. The Iranians have made clear they want vengeance for the strike we took against General Soleimani by going after former senior American officials, including myself. President Biden needs to make clear not only will coming after an American, whether it's an American former senior government official or an American civilian, not only will coming after an American with threats or attacks be punished, but even threatening such a thing creates real risk here inside our country. We can't permit this to happen. Joe Biden has no intention, and Vice President Harris, you could see last night, said Iran is the biggest problem set, but then said, what are we doing about it? And the answer was literally nothing. They refuse to acknowledge that Tehran is dangerous to the United States and take the appropriate responses to defend our country. They've missed the mark here so badly that we've now had Americans killed and Americans continue to be held hostage. And we have Iran with great wealth, $29 billion in foreign exchange reserves, selling oil on it at a discount to the Chinese in ways that just undermines the basic security proposition here in the United States.
Yeah, there's a Washington Free Beacon story I'm reading, and it says, disclosed how Obama administration officials conducted shadow diplomacy with Iran to undermine Trump. Apparently, senior Obama administration officials engaged in secret meetings in 2018 as part of an effort to undermine Trump's threats that he was going to kill the nuclear deal.
I remember it very well. I lived it. John Kerry was meeting with the Iranians. Former other senior Obama officials were meeting with them saying, just wait till we're back and things will get better. And it turns out this may be the one thing Secretary Kerry was right about. Things did get better for the regime. not for the Iranian people. It got better for the IRGC, their terror force. It got better for the Ayatollah. Pay was restored to Hezbollah and to Hamas, and you can see what's happened, Maria. When you give terrorists, the world's largest state-sponsored terror, real money and real wealth, they will use it in exactly the way they have promised that they would.
Yeah, and that's what Reza Pahlavi has been saying as well. But last night, Bret Baier tried grilling Vice President Harris on the administration's handling of Iran. It was her first ever Fox News interview last night, as you mentioned. Here's a clip.
What do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that
but those proxies were getting funded by
my
Iran.
commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions in
Let's go back to
oil
Donald
profits.
Trump.
She went back to Donald Trump. She went back to Donald Trump a lot during that interview, Secretary. Did you understand what she was saying in terms of she was in the room, in the Situation Room? I didn't understand the point she was making.
Yeah, Maria, I have no idea what she was speaking of. And if the answer was, hey, we've deterred Iran, I think the evidence would point just to the contrary. They've failed to enforce sanctions. They're threatening Americans. They're firing missiles into the Red Sea, raising insurance rates for shippers, so food prices for Americans all across the country. There's no evidence. I don't know what they were doing in the Situation Room, but there's no evidence that whatever it was they did or are doing is having any effect on the Iranian regime except making them wealthier and a greater threat to the United States of America.
When asked who America's leading adversary or threat was, the biggest threat the country faces, in that other interview with CBS the other day, she said it was Iran. And a lot of people scratched their heads and questioned why she didn't point out China. You've made the point so many times that communist China is inside the gates of America right now, and they're surveilling us, sending propaganda, stealing information. The Wall Street Journal and many others have reported this suspicious fleet of drones flew over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia for 17 days last year. More than 2 weeks, stumping the Pentagon, apparently. Nobody knows who it was and what they're doing. U.S. officials still do not know who was flying those drones, how to stop them, because federal law prohibits the military from shooting down drones near military bases in the U.S. unless they pose an imminent threat. After flying over Langley Air Force Base, the drones headed south over an area that includes the home base for the Navy's SEAL Team 6 and Naval Station Norfolk. Secretary, what do you make of these flying drones around U.S. military installations?
Maria, this reminds me so much of the Chinese spy balloon, where the first answer from the administration was, we don't know what happened. The second was, don't worry, they're not spying. And the third one is, oh my gosh, we need to shoot it down after it's out to sea. I don't know what to make of this. The fact that the Department of Defense and U.S. government officials can't figure out inside the United States who was flying drones puzzles me. It seems like this would be something that the intelligence community and law enforcement could figure out rather readily. Maybe it suggests they're not trying nearly hard enough to get those answers, but the American people both deserve them and need them. And you're right. I know the area well that you just described. I won't say more, but we have very sensitive American activities that take place in that region, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if one of our adversaries, whether it was Iran or the Chinese or the Russians or the North Koreans or some combination thereof, wasn't indeed trying to identify and impact our capacity to protect Americans. The fact that we've got unknown vehicles flying inside of our country, and the administration just talks about, clean climate change and the like, befuddles me and makes me and many Americans worried that Vice President Harris, if she was elected, will make our national security even weaker.
Yeah, and they're also talking about DEI initiatives and equity. Look, Secretary, your illustrious career has given you so much incredible experience. What do you believe is the most important advice for the next commander-in-chief? I mean, having been the director of the CIA, Secretary of State, Congressman from Kansas, what do you believe to be the most important threat, adversary, that America and its incoming commander-in-chief needs to be aware of?
Maria, there are two national security imperatives that have to happen immediately. The first is we've got to get our southern border closed. Who knows how many terrorists may well have infiltrated the United States across that southern border in the last 3.5 years plus. Day one, got to happen. Second, the Chinese Communist Party fundamentally has the capacity and the intention of changing the way you and I live, Maria, and we can't let that happen. There's lots of work that's got to be done. You and I have talked about it before, but those would be the twin tasks that the United States needs to lead on. And then when our friends need our help, whether it's our friends in Ukraine pushing back against Vladimir Putin or our friends in Israel trying to crush the Iranian regime, we need to unconditionally support them, not threaten them, and withhold weapons from them in a way that risks their lives, the lives of the Gulf Arab states, and Americans as well.
Yeah, it's quite stunning to see the U.S. threaten holding back weapons in the middle of Israel's fight for survival. We'll keep a watch on it. Secretary, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Maria. Have a great day, man.
And to you, Secretary Mike Pompeo joining us. Stay with us.